But so Adrian actually DM'd me to let me know that he will not be here today, unfortunately. But you can contact him from the past. You can ask questions and he'll see it on like Monday or Tuesday. It's okay. Um, but oh no, oh. I was thinking that I was thinking that before the stream I was like, I need to look up the Spanish words to make sure that I am pronouncing them right. And then I had it in my brain and I was like, okay, I want to do this other thing first. And then part of the angel on my shoulder was like, you need to look up the Spanish words now because you're gonna forget to do it if you don't do it now. And I'm like, no, I won't forget. I'll do this thing first. And then I did forget. So I am sorry. I am Sky. I am Sora. I am sorry if I butcher the Spanish words. It's not my intent. I just forgot to look it up. Orphan. No, the Chinese don't claim Everest, but they do claim everything else. All right. And I guess I could ask the chat, like, okay, like let's see how easy it is to copy over the words. Okay, yeah, I could try. Well, there's one word if you want to look it up and see if you'll go faster than me. I don't know. I'll try dictionary.com, but I don't know if they'll give me the non-English words. Pana. Go. Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't want to give me. Okay, where are you, headphones? Well, it says that near me, so apparently it is a beloved thing. Hello? It doesn't... Here. It does not want to, Oh, you can't even see it. It doesn't want to play. Am I don't know. Well, the things conspire against me. I try to look up pronunciation and it doesn't actually want to pronounce for me. So I guess that's a sign. We're just gonna go with what comes to mind. So, well, while we're talking about this particular word here at the beginning, I would probably pronounce that like Penadiera. Is that how you'd pronounce that? Does anybody know? What's the line in Vox and Alistair's song? It made me think of that. It's like, does anybody miss him? Did anybody notice? Did anybody know? Did anybody... That's what I did, Mako. That is exactly what I did. Okay, well, this is going too slow. let's just do it. Let's just Pena de Rea. Pena de Rea. Okay, Pena de Rea. A Taste of Love by Adrian Solorio. 1,143 words. The family needed extra money. Even with Lupita working full-time at the Panadera, they were barely getting by. But every time she tried to mention it to her husband, he took it as an insult. It was an attack on his sense of pride, of being a husband, a father, a man. So she did her best to approach the topic with care. Her tone was sweet and tactful, but it didn't matter. Once Alfonso's pride was hurt, he shut down, bottled up. Not giving up, she took another angle. Their son wanted to join the science club, to study English with a tutor, to go on a field trip to the museums in Mexico City. They needed money so he could do all that. This was about their son, she reminded Alfonso, not him and his ego. But the conversation ended the way it usually did, with him storming out of the house, running off to go drink with his friends. On his way out, he called her ungrateful and slammed the door. On Saturday night, she cooked dinner for a few friends. The dinner was a tradition. Cooking for her friends was a small pleasure she afforded herself once or twice a month, despite her family's tight budget. And why not? He went to the bar with his friends, why couldn't she have fun with hers? The girls arrived together. As Lupita finished cooking pozole verde and enchiladas rojas in the kitchen, the girls sat at the small table and drank cheap beer and bitter wine. They laughed, they teased, sang along to sad old love songs that mirrored their lives, and in between it all, they talked, they shared. They always did. It was part of the tradition. The drinking made honesty easier. They vented about their men, worried over their children, and cursed their measly pay and horrible bosses. When it was her turn, Lupita told the girls about her money problems. Told them how Alfonso got angry any time she brought the matter up. He's stubborn as a goat, she said, and proud as a rooster. The girls understood her perfectly. They immediately encouraged her, hugged her, brought her up, and raised her spirits. You could open a taqueria, they said. You're the best cook we know. That night, they pooled their money together, transferring it over their phones. There was enough there to get her started. The next night, when she told Alfonso about her plans, they had it out. Had a big, big fight. There was lots of yelling. He wanted her to give the money back. How does it look? He said. Your friends giving you money like I can't support you? How does that make me look? This isn't about you, she said, and refused to hear more. Her plans had become a dream. There would be no compromise now. They went on arguing, while their son sat on the couch, covering his ears, crying for them to stop. Neither listened. Instead, they both said things they'd been holding inside for a long time, things that felt good being said in the moment, but which they both regret having said later. My mom was right about you, Alfonso said. I should have listened when she told me. Should have rushed to marry you when you got pregnant. Lupita's face darkened, and her eyes glowered with a furious light at the mention of his mother. Oh, she laughed wickedly. The little boy is mad that his wife isn't his mama. That old bag has hated me since the day she saw me, and you've never corrected her. How do you think that makes me feel? You're married to me, not her. A cold war ensued. For the rest of that week, they didn't talk. When one needed something from the other, they communicated through their son. And when Lupita came home, pushing an old taco cart, Alfonso watched from the threshold, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. He tried to make love to her one night. Making love had always been their way of fixing things, or starting to fix things. But this time, she wasn't going to make it so easy. Not after what he'd said. She snapped at him, turned her back to him, and couldn't sleep for all the roiling thoughts and emotions inside her. The next day, when he got home from work, Alfonso repainted the taco cart with a fresh coat. With that act alone, the glacial walls Lupita had put up started to warm. And although they still weren't talking, she would have made love to him that night, if he had tried. A couple days later, she was preparing to open her taqueria. She cooked and prepped in the kitchen, the smell of habaneros, fresh diced cebolla, and grilled jitomate in the air. When it was time, her son helped her push the cart out of the garage. One wheel was missing, and it clunked down the street, as though rolling over unseen ruts. Alfonso followed behind, frowning at the wheel, quiet. He kept a distance. Maybe he was still afraid to overstep his bounds, she thought. They reached the corner, and she started to set up. Her son helped set out the plastic chairs, while she turned on the hot burner, took out the bins with the meats and salsas. She watched her son as he worked, I felt a little guilty. Maybe one of your girlfriends from school will pass by, she teased. He giggled, and she turned back to the cutting board. To her surprise, Alfonso was there, beside her, cutting the limes. A small smile crossed her face, but she turned away to hide it. We need more tortillas, she said to no one, but just loud enough for him to hear. He didn't say anything. With a little worried flutter in her heart, she spun around, hoping to see him, but he was gone. He had left, and she stood there watching his back as he walked briskly towards the tortilla makers. Later, as the sun set, curious neighbors gathered round the new taco stand. The family worked together. She was in charge, and they listened. Why wouldn't they? She was the best cook they knew. Business was steady. Each one of them fell into their role without their roles having to be discussed. She cooked while her son cleaned the dishes, and her husband took care of the orders and the money. At the end of the night, when they were closing, a customer asked Alfonso the name of her taqueria. He shrugged his shoulders and, with a sheepish look, glanced at his wife. She met his eyes, and something unseen and unsaid passed between them. A resolution, an agreement, a peace. She sighed, satisfied then, and turned to the customer with a bright smile and answered, Un sabor de amor. Throw those moths and monsters cheer for the story if you loved it. It's really this nose of mine that makes me trip more than anything. Whenever I get to that point, I'm like, no, clear. No, don't do this to me. I got more pronunciation. The panaderias would be pretty common in Texas, considering the state's history. Maybe I've been to one or ordered from one and not known that's what it was. Look at those cute little guys, Orphan. Oh, adorable. Alrighty-roo. Adrian had a little note. Questions? Did the story resonate with you? Did it sound natural? I'm especially wondering about the specific line when Lupita is explaining to her friends about her husband. She says something like, he was stubborn as a mule and proud as a rooster. I'm thinking the proud as a rooster part might be a bit much, simply because I've never heard anyone talk like that. And I generally go for naturalism in my dialogue, but maybe this has a nice romantic ring to it that works with the overall story. How is the overall flow? Were there any parts that were confusing or made you stumble while reading? Anything that took you out of the story, essentially? Were the relationship dynamics believable? Thank you for any feedback. So feel free to answer any and all of those questions in the chatteroni. And I will, of course, answer them either during or at the end. So I really enjoyed the story. I mean, it's kind of a tough read at the beginning when you don't know if things are gonna go well. But especially on like a second and third read, like I greatly enjoyed reading it. I think that this, like, I guess I'll answer your first question about were the relationship dynamics believable. A little too believable. Like, this feels so realistic that I'm like, it feels like you've been through this. It feels like you have been one of the people in this dynamic, that it feels that realistic. And that, like, you know the intricacies of this kind of relationship and stuff like that. What was I gonna say? Yeah, so, like, I think you did a really great job with the relationship. I'm really glad that we were able to read at least one story that had that was focusing on family love. I guess, like, I don't know, it's interesting because it's a lot about her and her husband, so I guess that's like romantic love, but it does feel more about like the family as a whole to me, and so I enjoy romantic stories too, but this definitely spiced things up and was a very curious and interesting take on the prompt, I guess. I guess that was the prompt, love. Yeah, I guess I'll just start getting into it. So actually, like, I really don't have much to critique about this story. But the main question critique has to do with the beginning here in a couple ways. So, part one of the question. Is Alfonso working? Because it's never mentioned that he's working. All it's mentioned is he's out drinking with his friends. And so, but also I feel like maybe if he wasn't working, like, that would be a very key part of the story. She'd probably be like, you know, well, if you want to be seen as a big, strong man, then, like, go get a job instead of drinking with your friends. You know? That feels like that would be mentioned if that was the case. But it also feels a little bit weird that his job is never mentioned. So I'm not quite sure what to think in those regards. Let's see. You could have done something like had him say, like, I've asked for a raise like 5 times and I can't ask again, you know, like, this is the amount of money we're getting from my job, kind of thing. And then the other aspect of it is she's working full time. And so it does make me wonder on a second read, I kind of forgot about it on my first read, but it does make me wonder on a second read how she is able to work full time and also open a taqueria. So I feel like, you know, clarifying that he does work full time and she works part time, and so she, like, has the time to do this. I think that would have worked a little bit better for me personally. But so this story is really interesting because it's all told indirectly, right? That we never get quotes and, like, full dialogue, even though there are some things that are clearly quotes. And that I tried to voice as such. None of it is actually quoted. None of it's actually dialogue. Thank you for the cheer, Incarnator. I just need 500 more to unlock his. What's he saying? But I think it works. Like, I feel like often I would be, like, I could easily be, like, critiquing this and being like, why is it all indirect or something like that? But at least for this story, I think that worked very well. I'm trying to figure out how to describe the vibe it gives the story. It gives the story a particular vibe. I guess it's kind of like this hazy amount of distance to it, but it kind of works. It kind of works. I mean, not kind of. It does work. It works for the story quite well. If anybody else knows what to call it or like why it works, feel free to say so in the chat. I think, like, you do a great job of introducing that story, like, full blast in the first paragraph. Like, even the first, like, the family needed extra money, like that. Okay, like, topic sentence, first line, that tells you exactly where the story is going to go. And then the first paragraph is going into, like, well, every time she tried to mention it to her husband, he took it as an insult. It attacked his pride. Like, that's kind of the whole conflict inside the story. And so that works very well. Yeah, I think that's described very realistically, that it's like, she just mentions, like, hi, we need more money. And he, you know, feels attacked and like that idea of it didn't matter what her tone was. Okay, his pride is hurt. He shuts down, like, super realistic. And then I like her switching tactics to, like, hey, we both care about our son, right? Like, you want to help the Sunny Boy, right? That works. That's a good introduction to the son and the introduction that they do both love him. And like, this is also an introduction of location where they are. That's great. I mean, this kind of does it too, but and then it works well of, okay, like, his pride is hurt, he feels attacked, and then what does he do about that? He goes and drinks with his friends. Like, all that works. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's just all the little details work together, and it doesn't feel like you're repeating yourself at any point, even though, like, you're kind of saying the same thing in different ways. Aw, thanks for your cheer, Mako. Am home. Your home and reincarnator story is also home. It's also unlocked. Thanks for doing that. Set up conflict resolution. Yeah, exactly. Wee! Says the reincarnator. But yeah, so like all like I don't know. Then like FYI, this is how the whole story is. Like I don't know if I'm gonna be able to talk about it well because like every detail just fits, and even when you're kind of saying the same thing in different ways, like it still works. It still feels incredibly engaging and still feels new and interesting. And like talking about, I mean, you talk about it a little more blatantly later, but like again very realistic that like that he takes it as an insult that he's insecure, right? That he's insecure about the fact like, oh, I'm the man of the house, I'm the husband, I need to provide for my family, I need to support my wife. And so then when she's like, hi, we don't have enough money, then he's like, excuse me, are you saying that I'm a bad husband? Are you saying that I can't, provide for my family? And like that is like a real thing that happens, and that is a like realistic struggle of like, well, funnily enough, like if he was able to set aside his pride if he was mentally healthier and wasn't dealing with those insecurities and stuff like that, it actually would make things easier and make it easier for him to support the family. Yeah, so it's all like super realistic. It makes a lot of sense. I really like, why not? So like he went to the bar with his friends. I can have some drinks with my friends at home and stuff like that. And then I like that you introduced that cooking is a pleasure to her, that it could be like, as the woman of the house, I have to cook. Like, gosh darn it, I hate it. Not to belittle that plight. Like, if that is a plight, like, that's a very real plight. But that could be something that she hates. And like, this family does seem to, like, at least the husband seems to want to adhere to traditional gender roles, and so this particularly could be a time where she is relegated to the woman's role that she doesn't want, and so it's very good to clarify actually she really likes cooking, so much so that like this is a tradition that she enjoys, making a meal for her friends. Also, verde means green and rojas means red, right? So I don't know what pozole is, but I like that it is something green and enchiladas that are red. I'm assuming they're real dishes, though. I like cheap beer and bitter wine. Like, you're great at those adjectives. That's neat because like it shows, yeah, they don't have enough money. All they can afford is cheap beer and bitter wine. That's great. I love the list. They laughed, they teased, they sang old love songs that mirrored their lives. I always love when a list does that. A list is like, yeah, general generic thing, specific thing that you go into more details on. Like, I really like that. And that also gives more, extra insight into her life and the lives of her friends being similar and stuff. Made the honesty easier, makes a lot of sense. And then I like the list here too. So we come to the line that you asked about. This was one of my favorite lines in the piece. I think that it's funny because on the one hand, thanks for the cheer, Mako, and for the gift sub to Aerith. I think that makes Aerith a doubly cocooned now, right? If so, well, let me see. Yeah, you are. Okay, that shouldn't be too hard to just add because it's right up top. So there you go. Now you have that. What was I gonna say? Oh yes, the line. I really like the line. It is funny because on the one hand, like, I think it's super creative. It's a great simile, great two similes. I love it. But on the other hand, when you're asked that question, you're like, I don't know if that sounds natural. Like, part of my answer is that feels like so natural of a line that if that's not an idiom, I would be surprised. That like I totally read that. It's funny because generally idioms would be cliche and you wouldn't say that's creative, but yeah, I feel like I have both. That it's like it's really creative and a great line, but it also totally feels like something that could be an idiom. So like, not my answer is not only a yes, it sounds natural, it is a resounding yes. It sounds so natural that it feels like something I've heard repeated. It feels like something I've heard before, and that's meant to be a compliment. Unquestionably, we've unlocked the encore. Yes. Um, and then it's neat because like I feel like this could be a common thing that your friends would say. That it's like, oh yeah, you're a great cook. You could open up a restaurant. But that's the kind of thing that often friends just say that isn't really an attainable goal or never happens. And so I do love that this whole story is very realistic and down to earth of like very real struggles that people face. But her being able to achieve this dream that I feel like most people would think, well, that's never going to happen. Like that's impossible. Or at least beginning to achieve that dream. I think that's really cool. And then she got some great friends. She's got some great friends if, like, she says that she has money problems. And even after they are cursing their measly pay, they're like, we will give you the money to start this taqueria. I think that's really lovely. And then here's the kind of the part I was talking about before. Like, your friends giving you money, like, I can't support you. How does that make me look, right? Like, this is about me because he's insecure, and she's directly saying this isn't about you. I love the line, her plans to become a dream, like that. Again, that feels so realistic. The idea that, yeah, like I think I've had that experience before where like an idea will come up from me or from someone else and then be like, what if we do this? And then like a couple hours later, a couple days later, I'm like, I am so invested now, you know? It can be like, hey, what if we like went out to dinner later? and then at first you're like, yeah, I don't know if I want to go out to dinner. And then like a couple of hours later, you're like, I am now invested in going out to dinner. Now we have to, kind of thing. But this is a bigger thing. But I love that, and I love the poeticness of not just like she's super invested now, but it's a dream that now, oh yeah, I had this plan, this might help, had become like, no, now this is my dream, to open this. I think that's very cool. And like that she stands her ground. This is so sad. This is the saddest part of the piece to me that really tugs at my heartstrings. I like the image of they felt good being said in the moment, but they both regret having said later. It's great. And then this gives us some insight on like, oh, okay, like I understand why they're, maybe not the best couple, maybe not the most in love couple, if that was, how and why they got married and stuff like that. And again, it feels realistic. So this here is one of my few critiques. I don't really understand how that is a response to what he said. Now, like, as a general insult, like, I could totally see this naturally being said in a fight. Like, I don't think the actual insult itself, like, it doesn't make sense. It's just what it's in response to. That he's like, oh, like, my mom was right. My mom gave good advice. I shouldn't have rushed to marry you when you got pregnant. And then she's like, oh, you're mad I'm not your mom. I'm like, well, that's not what he said. Like, he just said my mom gave good advice. Yeah, thank you for the hype train. He just said my mom gave good advice and I should have listened, and he's not saying my mom is better than you, or my mom would make a better wife than you. That's not what he's saying. He's just saying that they rushed into things and she advised him well and he didn't listen. So that does seem a little bit of an odd response. But I do really like the description of it, especially the wickedly adjective there. I think that's great. And I can totally, again, her feelings are very valid and very realistic. Oh, there comes the ad. There she blows. I'll try and snooze it, but you know, I see that as the thing that happens a lot, where it's like the mother-in-law hates the wife, and you know, the husband is not standing up for her. Like, if you follow Am I the Asshole, you know, posts and stuff, granted, like, I mean, I don't know. But quite a few posts are conflict between the mother-in-law and the wife. So, like, this is a common struggle. So, very realistic, and I like that she gets to the, like, root of the issue there, that it does feel like they're working through some, like, very key issues in their relationship, that she's like, ever since the beginning she hated me, and like, you have never stood up for me, like, that has made me feel awful for like all of our marriage and stuff like that. I like a Cold War ensued, and they talk through the son. Like, again, I feel so bad for the son, but like, again, feels realistic, feels well written. I do I do like, you know, he's like watching, and, you know, is kind of scowling at it and stuff like that. That works quite well. And I think that the the making love stuff actually, like, works quite well. That makes a lot of sense. Again, I'm sorry that almost all my comments is, this feels realistic, but it does. But it's really good, you know, like, that I just am in awe of how, like, this totally feels like you could be telling a nonfiction story right now. It's not just that it's like, this feels true to real life. It is also like, super well written, and it flows very well and stuff like that. But yeah, like, I can totally see some couples being like that, where, like, yeah, that's how you start to fix things. And I like that she's standing around and being like, no, like, what you said is too much this time, kind of thing. And then how, and then I absolutely love the gesture that makes things start to turn around. Like, that's very neat, how, like, he's been the stubborn goat, you know, in this relationship the whole time, who doesn't want to, you know, be seen as weak, or, like, you know, not enough of a husband, you know, kind of thing. Not a good supporter. And so the fact that he, you know, sets down his pride for the night to help her out and paint the taco cart and stuff like that, and then that starts everything melting, you know, starts everything going better. That works so well. And again, it feels very realistic, that something, so it's so simple, but it's so big, right? It's such a simple thing, but the fact that he was able to set aside his pride to go and do something nice for her really does mean a lot. And so I can totally understand her reaction and stuff like that. It's a great flow to the story. I am curious why he doesn't fix the wheel, because, you know, he does, like, repaint the cart and stuff like that, but I don't know if it's like, we end on this day. We end on the day that we recognize the wheel problem. He would fix it tomorrow. The story just doesn't go to tomorrow. And then I like how you can see, like, he's still there, like, scowling, but this time he's like, like, I don't like that the wheel is clinking. I want to fix that. Like, I want to help. And then she's thinking positively about him, like, okay, maybe it's not that he's mad at me. Maybe he's just, you know, afraid to step his bounds, but I'm okay with it. You know, I'm okay with him coming closer, kind of thing. And then I like, you know, you introduce that she feels guilty, and then she tries to talk to him, and it's like, hey, I'll tease you. Maybe when your girlfriends from school come by. Very sweet. And then I love her turning around, and there's Alfonso helping out. You know, he's, you know, setting his pride aside even more to come and actually be a part of this and help. Love her just saying it to the room, hoping he'll hear, kind of thing. I am curious why, with a little worried flutter in her heart, she spun around hoping to see him, but he was gone. And then he leaves to go to the tortilla maker, so he does, what she's wanting him to do. But I'm curious why the expectation was for him to be there, because the whole point is like, we need more tortillas, just tell him the room, and she's hoping that he'll go get more tortillas. So why isn't she hoping that he would be gone? Hoping that he's gone and out with the tortillas. So a little unsure about that, but not a big deal. I am also curious, who or what are the tortilla makers? Are the tortilla makers people, or are they machines? Because that was definitely one of my biggest confusions in the piece, because like, if they're people, it feels like this is a big operation, and this doesn't seem to be a big operation. But if it's machines, that does feel better. But I'm still wondering how they could afford a whole machine for that, rather than just... I mean, I don't know exactly how tortillas are made, but rather than just using whatever you have on hand, you have a specific tool for it, kind of thing. And kind of a similar line. If cart, wear dishes. Or no, if cart, wear wash. Like, I was imagining kind of like a hot dog cart, that we're just rolling around. It's a little cart with an umbrella on it, kind of thing. Those don't really have sinks, as far as I know. I could be wrong, but... So I'm not sure if this is a cart or a food truck. It's been described as a cart the whole time, but now it's sounding more like a food truck. So I'm curious how that's working, or if, like, he goes into the house to clean the dishes. That just wasn't described, kind of thing. But question there. But, I love the, and why wouldn't they? I'm mad that I missed the and on that when I read it. And there's the ad. You'd hope, people? What do you hope in people?
Very sleepy kitty. You've not moved all stream. How are you, sleepy kitty? You're very cute. You're very, very cute. Yes, you are. Fluffy Bella. Bella, Bella, kitty, boop, 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 boop.
I'll read that after.
That is a cute little cat.
Oh. Earth says, the story reminds me a lot of some of the magical realist stories from the Spanish-speaking world, like A Very Old Man with Enormous Wings, amazing title, short story, or Like Water for Chocolate novel. Like a Very Old Man with Enormous Wings is told in a matter-of-fact realist tone, very personal, direct, and honest. Interesting. The PCA purring today. It is. Maybe not as bad as usual, but it is. Yeah, this last paragraph is great. I love them all falling into their roles and stuff like that. And I love that when, like, the end is such a great wrap up to the story because it's all been about Alfonso and his insecurities, right? And so the fact that at the end he defers, that he doesn't just take over and go, well, I'm the husband, I will decide the name, you know, that's right, I'm in charge. That instead, like, somebody comes to him like he's in charge, and he sheepishly looks over and he's like, well, actually, she's in charge. You know, I think that's great. And then I like, you know, the more direct ending, a resolution, an agreement, a peace, and then she names it A Taste of Love, which is great for the prompt. And I like that you have the title, and that it's neat because, you know, people who don't speak Spanish won't know what that means, but you can guess because it's the title. And it doesn't, like, it's neat because it doesn't feel like, there it is, you said the title, because it's in a different language. You know, that works very well. The title is just a helpful translation and clarification. Ghoulish says, I'd hope people would make the tortillas, especially in a panaderia. This is not the panaderia, though. This is the taco stand. So that's part of my question. Like, as far as I know, wife, husband, and son are the only employees. And so it's a little weird if all of a sudden there are people over there making tortillas. What was I gonna say? And it is nice to know, like, this is realistic, and it is, you know, because they were talking at the beginning of, like, the women complaining about their husbands and stuff like that, and so it's kind of, at the beginning, it's like, oh no, like, it's just, she just kind of have a sucky life and a sucky husband, and it's especially hopeful at the end to learn, like, no, like, he's not a sucky dude, you know, or at least, he might have his sucky days, as we all do, but at the end, like, he's gonna try and support her, and you know, be a good husband and be a family, and I do really like that. I've seen that play out in real life, Irvin says. Tortillas require tortilla press, yes. Gotcha. Use and throw dishes. What, throw them out? Well, you wouldn't need to wash them if they were, like, paper dishes. Oh, yeah. What was your questions? Did I answer them? Did the story resonate with me? Yes, it did. Again, maybe a little too much at the beginning, but absolutely. Did it sound natural? Yes, it did. How's the overall flow? Were there any parts that are confusing or made you stumble reading? Anything that took you out of the story? Essentially, nothing grievous. Like, I had a couple critiques, but nothing bad. Like, it flowed quite well. Yeah, so my answer to all of it is like, yes, it works. It's great. It's realistic. It's natural. I think you did a fantastic job. Very, very touching and impactful story. Thank you so much for submitting.